All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going deep on something pretty vital. I think for those of you who are dealing with AI, at a large scale, it's CPMAI V7. So if you're leading AI strategy, maybe you have models that are running in production. This deep dive into CPMAI V7, we're going to look at it from an expert's perspective, and I think this should really give you a good look at how it delivers a really structured and scalable approach to your AI initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're going right into the deep end here. We're assuming that, you've already got the basics down, when it comes to AI projects. But what's so interesting about CPMAI V7 is that it's really bringing together all of these different methodologies, and it offers a much more, robust framework for managing all the complexities that come with enterprise AI.
Okay, so for those who might be hearing this term for the first time in this context, what exactly is CPMAI V7?
So CPMAI stands for Cognitive Project Management for AI. And version 7, you can really think of it as the latest iteration, and it's really focused on all of the demands that come with large scale deployments for enterprises. And it's really in how unique of a blend it is.
Yeah.
It takes the iterative flexibility that you get from Agile, and then you have that systematic problem solving that you get from Crisp DM. And what's really crucial is it has a strong emphasis on governance. And this combination, this really sets it apart from a lot of the more technical machine learning frameworks, the ones that may not, really address the broader organizational needs as well.
Right. So this isn't just about, you get a model to hit a certain accuracy in a controlled environment. It's much more than that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if we connect this to what it really means to deploy AI, and we're talking in regulated industries and these complex scenarios, real world scenarios. Well, CPMAI V7 is designed to handle all those nuances. So you need to be able to explain the model's decisions, right? So that's explainability. You need to be able to trace that data and the model lineage, right? So that's traceability. And of course, your AI solutions, they need to adapt and they need to grow, right? So that's scalability. So it's all about really bridging this gap, right, between the technical wizardry of building AI and that really essential enterprise governance. And that's what's going to ensure your adoption is responsible and that it's impactful. And it's designed to really foster collaboration across the board, right?
So your data scientists, your engineers, but also your business stakeholders, right? Because they're the ones who really understand the problem, and even your legal teams, right? They're the ones who are concerned about compliance.
Right, right. So this is a real meeting of the minds here,
For
and as you said, there are 6 key steps in this life cycle. Let's jump right into the first one. Strategic AI alignment. So now for experts, this isn't just about you see a potential AI use case, right? It's much more than that, I'd imagine.
Exactly. At this level, it's about a much more strategic integration of your AI capabilities, but it's with the core business objectives that they're gonna bring a lot of value. So the question that you need to consider is how are you really pinpointing those high impact areas where AI can really drive those tangible results. And what's really fascinating here is that we're going beyond just seeing a nail and wanting to use an AI hammer to hit it, right?
Right. So it's about making sure that those AI initiatives are really tied to what the business really cares about, right? At the end of the day.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You're identifying those fundamental, economic or operational drivers for the organization, right? So things like really significantly reducing customer churn, or achieving much more accurate demand forecasting, or even making some really big improvements in diagnostic accuracy in healthcare. And the crucial next step is not just identifying these, right, but it's really about translating those immediately into measurable key performance indicators, your KPIs, right? So if your goal is to reduce churn, well KPI, that might be a specific percentage decrease in churn rate within a very defined time frame. And what's also really really key here is that right from this initial stage, you're embedding risk modeling, right, so that you can anticipate potential challenges. You're conducting a thorough stakeholder analysis to understand everybody's perspective, everybody's concerns, everyone who's involved.
And you're even going through a preliminary regulatory checklist, so you can proactively identify any compliance hurdles.
That makes a lot of sense, right? That proactive approach. I mean, it's better to, spot those potential pitfalls early on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's all about, building with foresight, anticipating, all those complexities that we know are going to come up in a real world deployment.
Okay, so we've strategically aligned our AI efforts. We have clear business goals. We've considered potential risks. What's the next critical step in this process?
So the next critical step is step 2, and that's data intelligence mapping. And what our sources are saying here is that this goes way beyond, basic data profiling. So how so?
Yeah, how so? How so?
Well, what becomes really, really critical here is that you're gaining a truly deep understanding, a nuanced understanding of your data landscape, right? And it's not enough. It's not enough to just look at summary statistics. You need to trace the data's the data's journey. You need to see its lineage. Where did it come from? What systems has it passed through? And understanding this is so vital, right? Because it helps you uncover potential biases. Biases that might be inherent in the data itself, or it helps you identify those data quality issues that could really really impact your models down the road. You're also establishing those rigorous data quality metrics. What is good quality data for your specific use case, right? And then a really really significant aspect of this is the proactive bias diagnostics.
So you're actively investigating. Does your data contain patterns that could lead to unfair discriminatory outcomes when your models are trained on it?
So it's really about understanding the data's full story, right? Where it comes from, potential biases. It's not just about its current state.
Exactly. It's you need to really assess how reliable is this data, and you need to understand how it's going to behave in those real world conditions, which we know that can often be very different from a pristine development environment. The source material mentioned tools like Great Expectations and Y Labs, and think of those as like your automated data quality guardians, right? They're just constantly monitoring your data pipelines, and then you have some organizations that are really mature, and they'll even develop their own internal profiling dashboards, right? And those provide like a real time view of their data's health and characteristics.
Okay. Sure. Okay, great. So let's move on to step 3, which is pipeline engineering and feature strategy. So this sounds like where we're actually starting to build the machinery that powers the AI.
Exactly. But at this level, at this expert level, it's not about ad hoc scripting. It's really about architecting pipelines that are robust, modular, and highly reusable. So imagine that you're building with standardized components, right? Components that you can easily assemble and reconfigure for different projects, and everything within these pipelines, the code, the configurations, the data transformations. I mean, everything is managed under strict version control. So that gives you a complete audit trail of all the changes, and it gives you that ability to revert back to previous states if you need to. And automation is really, really key here. So you're trying to automate, as much as possible, right? The data ingestion, the processing, the feature engineering, the model training workflow. You want to automate all of that to make sure that it's efficient and that it's consistent.
And then we have this concept of a feature store. So how does that fit into this stage?
Right. So the feature store, that's going to act as a centralized and curated repository for your engineered features, right? So those are the specific inputs that your machine learning models are going to consume. What's really really valuable here is the consistency that it enforces. So features that are calculated for model training, those are exactly the same ones that are served to your models in live production environments, right? And this eliminates a lot of the common errors and inconsistencies that can pop up when feature engineering is done in a way that's more fragmented. You're also integrating some really really crucial elements like like schema validation, right? To make sure that that data it conforms to the expected structures and anomaly detection to flag any any unexpected data shifts, which could indicate problems, right? And then you have CI/CD, so your continuous integration, continuous delivery triggers, right?
So you can automatically build, test, and deploy changes to your pipelines with confidence.
So it sounds like there's a major focus here on building infrastructure that's resilient and stable.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the reason for that is because, if we look at, the bigger picture here in enterprise AI, we have things like data drift, right? So that's where the statistical properties of your data, they change over time. And then you have failures, right,
Yeah.
that happen within these really, really critical pipelines. And these things, they can have huge, financial and reputational consequences. So something that seems like, a really minor glitch, in the data pipeline, well, that can cascade into these widespread issues with your models, right?
Sure.
And that can lead to, business decisions that are incorrect, and that can cause a loss of user trust.
Right. Okay. So that brings us to step 4, which is ethical model architecture. And it's clear that, model performance alone isn't really the primary concern here at this level.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really fundamental shift in mindset, right? When we're talking about expert level AI development. So the focus it moves beyond just optimizing for the highest accuracy in a setting that's isolated. It's really about architecting models that are inherently auditable and trustworthy. You need to really understand how your model is arriving at its predictions, right? Especially in domains where those predictions have consequences, that are really significant. So the sources mentioned, leveraging techniques like transfer learning, AutoML, and even those really sophisticated deep learning architectures. But the key here is that all of this is implemented, but interpretability is a core design principle. So tools like Eshiate, Lime, counterfactual explanations, those provide mechanisms for you to understand the model's reasoning. So think of them as kind of like model debuggers, right? They help you understand why behind the what.
Right. Right. And the ethical considerations, that we talked about earlier. I mean, those are still really important here, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So your model development workflow at this stage, I mean, it includes explicit fairness checks. Are different demographic groups being treated, fairly by the model? Sensitivity analysis that's going to help you understand, how might changes in specific input features affect certain outcomes, maybe disproportionately. And then in sectors that are highly regulated, you might even integrate legal reviews directly into that model design and training process, and that's so that you can proactively identify and mitigate any potential legal or compliance risks. So the goal here is to build models that are accurate, yeah, but they're also fair, transparent, and aligned, with ethical principles.
Okay, so after we've built these ethically minded models, we need to evaluate them, right? We need to really thoroughly evaluate them. And step 5 is risk-based model evaluation. And it seems like, the metrics that we consider here, I mean, it goes way beyond, your standard accuracy measures.
Yeah. And what becomes really, really interesting here is that, we're broadening the scope of the evaluation. So while those traditional performance metrics, they're still relevant, expert level evaluation, it really adopts a much more comprehensive and risk-aware approach. So you're really, putting those models through rigorous stress testing, and you're using simulations that mimic, the complexities and the unpredictable nature of real world data. And then you have adversarial examples, right? So those are, carefully crafted inputs that are designed to intentionally mislead the model. And we use those, to probe its robustness and see, are there any potential vulnerabilities? And then counterfactual testing that helps you explore, those what if scenarios. So you understand how changes to specific inputs, how might that alter the model's output in different situations.
Okay, so this sounds like a much more proactive and a thorough way to really assess the model's readiness. Is it ready for the real world?
Yes, exactly. And the assessment of, how is it performing across, different subgroups. So for instance, evaluating its accuracy and fairness, for different genders, different age ranges, different geographic locations. I mean, this becomes really crucial, right? Because it helps you identify and rectify any potential biases or any disparities in outcomes. And the central idea here is that expert level evaluation, it goes way beyond those technical performance benchmarks. It incorporates a thorough assessment of is this model, is it legally fit, ethically fit, operationally fit? Can this model be deployed responsibly and reliably out there in that complex real world?
Right. Has to be ready for prime time. Okay, and finally we reach step 6, which is uh, intelligent deployment and lifecycle orchestration. And it's pretty clear that deploying a model, that's really just the initial step in a much larger process, right?
Yeah, you've hit on a key point there. So deployment at this mature level it's much more involved than simply pushing a model into a production environment. So you're establishing these CI/CD pipelines, and they're specifically tailored for machine learning workflows. And often we're utilizing those sophisticated tools like Kubeflow or SageMaker pipelines or Vertex AI to automate that deployment process. But what's maybe even more critical is the monitoring infrastructure that you put in place after the model is live, right? So you're constantly tracking not just those traditional metrics like latency and prediction accuracy, but you're also monitoring for fairness drift. So are the models fairness characteristics, are those changing over time as it's encountering new data? And then you have those specialized monitoring tools, right? Like Prometheus or evidently AI or Grafana.
Those really provide the visibility that's needed to track these crucial indicators.
So it's really about maintaining constant vigilance over that deployed AI system.
Precisely. And it's not just, passively observing, right? You're setting up automated alerts that are going to trigger, when there's those key metrics and they deviate from the expected thresholds. You're implementing automated retraining policies that are going to allow that model to adapt to new data patterns. You're establishing those really well-defined rollback mechanisms so you can quickly revert back to stable versions if any issues come up, and then you're providing those executive level governance dashboards, and those offer like a really high level overview, right, of the health, the performance, and the compliance status of all of your deployed AI systems. So it's like that an analogy. You have a production machine learning system, and it's like a living breathing organism, and it just needs that constant care, that constant monitoring, that constant control, and that really captures the essence of this stage.
Right.
Now, running through all 6 of these steps, permeating all of them, is this crucial element of AI governance and continuous compliance. So it's not really a separate phase, is it?
No, you've really highlighted a really fundamental aspect of CPMAI v7. So AI governance, it's not treated as a discrete stage. It's not an afterthought. It's intentionally woven into every single step of that AI life cycle. So think of it as like the underlying set of principles, the practices that ensure that everything is done responsibly, it's done accountably, and it's in accordance with all the relevant regulations and organizational policies.
Okay, so how does this pervasive governance, how does that really manifest itself in practical terms?
Well, it involves adopting those established governance frameworks, right? So things like the NIST AI risk management framework, the RMF, and then ISO 42001, and those offer really comprehensive guidelines, best practices for identifying, assessing, mitigating, and monitoring all those AI related risks, and they make sure that the quality and reliability of AI systems is where it needs to be. And a cornerstone of this is really that meticulous documentation of every single aspect of that AI life cycle. So from the very beginning, when you're selecting those features and the rationale behind all those architectural decisions to the detailed workflows for the ethical review and deployment approvals. And this comprehensive documentation, it's really essential, right? Because it shows that you're compliant with the regulations, and it makes those internal and external audits makes those much easier.
And it ensures that your AI initiatives, they're repeatable and they're consistent. As you scale them across different teams, different applications, or when you're under scrutiny from those regulatory bodies.
Right. So it sounds like it's really providing, that essential scaffolding, right, for building and deploying AI, responsibly and at scale within an organization.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's giving you that, that necessary auditability, traceability, things that are just so paramount in these enterprise environments, especially in those highly regulated industries, where accountability is so critical.
Okay. So to summarize, what are the key advantages of adopting CPMAI V7? Especially for those with a lot of experience in the AI and machine learning domain.
Right. So for seasoned practitioners, like yourselves, the benefits are huge and they're multifaceted, right? So first of all, it offers a repeatable process, a process that's well defined, and you can apply consistently across a whole range of different AI use cases. So that's going to bring much needed structure to what can feel like a really overwhelming and fragmented landscape. And then second of all, it helps make sure that your AI deployments, they're not just high performing, right? But they're inherently responsible. They're highly scalable, so they can meet those growing demands, and they're legally defensible. And this is so important, as we're as the environment is becoming more and more regulated, and as AI is becoming more and more ingrained, in those core business operations.
And third, by putting those governance considerations throughout the entire life cycle, well, that's going to foster much more alignment between what are your overall business objectives, the work that your technical teams are doing, and those really important requirements from your compliance and legal departments. And finally, it's giving you that robust framework for proactively identifying and managing all of those risks, right? Those inherent risks that come with deploying AI at scale, but it's still enabling you to really accelerate the delivery of AI solutions that are valuable and impactful.
Right.
So for those who are leading multiple machine learning projects or managing these really complex AI platforms or overseeing entire AI teams, I mean, this structured approach, it's not just beneficial, it's almost like a necessity. Right?
Precisely. When you're navigating all of the complexities that come with enterprise grade AI, having a framework like CPMAI V7, one that's so comprehensive and integrated. I mean, it's not just a best practice. It often becomes that really essential foundation, right? That's going to allow you to achieve sustained success and foster responsible innovation, over the long term.
Okay, well, this has been an incredibly insightful, detailed, expert breakdown of CPMAI V7. So thank you so much for really shedding light on all of these nuances of this really critical framework for managing AI at scale. Oh, my pleasure. It's a vital area for anyone who's committed to deploying AI effectively and responsibly within these complex organizational settings.
And thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into CPMAI V7. And we really hope that this this expert perspective, we hope it's given you some really valuable insights into how this framework, how it might be relevant to your own work, as you're managing or strategizing around artificial intelligence, and we encourage you to explore those specific steps of the CPMAI V7 lifecycle or those governance frameworks that we talked about.
Yeah.
The ones that really resonated with you, the ones that really align with your unique challenges and opportunities within your organization.
Yeah, it's about it's about finding those elements that really fit best in your context, right?
Yeah.
And building a responsible and robust AI practice from there.
Okay. And on that note, here's a final thought for you to think about. As you're navigating, that really intricate path of scaling AI within your organization, how might a framework like CPMAI V7, how might that provide both the rigor that's necessary, for responsible implementation, but also that flexibility, that's needed to foster continuous innovation?
Yeah, that's a great question.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.